All right, let's do a topic that I haven't done in a while. Important to the look of the club. I think you need to see this. Welcome back to the McGolf Shop. Jim McCleary here, and this is the McGolf channel where we talk about golf club repairs, golf club reviews, and golf club fittings. Also, your scores can go low. All right, if you would, join us on Mondays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 17:30. And it's on What's in My Drawers Golf Talk. It's what's in the drawers of this shop, and we talk about the same exact topics, only it's a rapid pace fire, a lot of fun. Join us. It's on the McGolf channel and on McGolf Custom Clubs on Facebook. I think it'd be a good time. All right, boxes to builds. This box to builds number 8. And this one comes to us from Benjamin. And it is a lefty set of Taylormade P760s. And he asked several questions about what it is we could do as swing weights, links, loft slides. The typical stuff, and finally we came to a conclusion of what he was wanting. Apparently he's gaming another set, and he wanted to be more in line with the other set, which is basically standard links, 38.5 inch, 38 inch 5 iron. It says 35.25, and then it gets into the normal, so 37.5, 37, so on and so on. And he wanted a particular kind of swing weight, which I think we're going to meet, and we're going to tell you about that. However, the topic is going to be about these guys, all right, about those guys. Why Ferrules? All right, Ferrules are the dressy part of the golf club. It's what gets attention. It's what people look at. It's what club makers measure each other for their capabilities, all right, and sometimes they are functional, sometimes they are not. It used to be, I would say, it's pretty much a non-existent thing, and it's for decoration. And in the day, that was true. Now, not so much. Now we have stuff like centering ferrules, which keeps the shaft, in line. What you will see is a lot of club makers will make mistakes, like on PXGs and even Callaways, where the opening of the hosel is much bigger than the shaft. And of course, we're going to put all these different things in there to secure it. Not a bad thing. However, what we're looking at is they typically have longer collars, and they hold the shaft in spot in place of that, all right, because it's a tight fit at the bottom, just not the top. Then what we have is decorative ferrules. And decorative ferrules, typically the number one for decorative ferrules has been BB and F, which are a lot of those stickers, because I get a lot of these to do, okay? In this particular instance, we're going to do it again. We have a bunch of light blue ones. All right, it's almost like a North Carolina kind of thing going on, because we got a set of grips that match that color identically. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So we have to take these guys apart, then we got to clean out the hosels, and then we're going to prep the tips, and we'll talk about that when we go to the bench. And then we'll talk about ferrule installations, which is not nearly as straightforward as it once was. And then we'll talk about finishing for fit and finish. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, I want to tell you something else. One thing I wanted to tell you was that there are several different manufacturers. Of course, there's BB and F, and they're the several different colors, very cool stuff. Then there is Billy Bob's, they do their own thing, and then there's Bohning. Bohning, and they also sell them. Now, you can also get them from Golf Works and several other club making supplies. Now, the difference here is that in BB&F, you're going to get all kinds of wild colors that you can choose from. Length, there's 2 sets of length, and there are, and the interior, I believe they only just do it for the irons. I don't know if they do it for the woods just yet. But the other ones will have several different kinds. Now, what I found out just 2 days ago is that Golf Works now is offering black ferrules with several different colors of decorative rings, all right? And so that we could look at something like that. So you can kind of, you know, make the iron look dressy without going too flashy, if that's your speed. All right, so now let's go to the bench. All right, back to the bench, and I had to do a bunch of singles work. I don't know if you can quite see them, but we got almost one of every kind up here, plus some extensions gluing. That's not part of this video, but it's fun to tell you. All right, so let's mix up some glue, and then we'll talk about this while we're putting the ferrules on. All right, so the glue gets mixed up for 60 seconds. All right, so we got these things torn apart, and what I did was I cleaned them up a little bit because whoever put them on the last time, there was all these glue rings around here for where they were glue overrun. And when we were talking about fit and finish, that's what this is all about. The previous set was just, you could tell, was just glued, and it looked pretty close, and they let it go, as opposed to making it a smooth transition from the end of the hosel through here to the ferrule. And so, you know, does it work? Yeah. Does it look sloppy? Very much so. So we're going to change that. So what we did was, in fit and finish, and a lot of these things, normally when you have, say, just a regular old ferrule on a 370, something like that, it's an easy fit, it slides right on, no problem. Anything else, and I can pick out any other ones. Here's a purple one. It'll do the same thing, same fit and finish. However, these guys, on the other hand, don't. And what they are is the insides are a little tight, so they don't want to slide once they're put on. However, it's really, really hard to get these things on. So what I do is I put them in my vise, and I use a 3/8 inch drill, and I run them through there. Now, what really works here is you can't use a dull one. You have to use a very sharp drill, a new one, and that'll cut this plastic. Now, you're only taking out a 32nd of an inch, but the fact that you go from having to fight it to that makes all the difference in the world. All right, so we've measured all the heads, we've measured all the shafts. We know that we're going to go logo down, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try and make ourselves a very nice set of clubs. Now, this is a specific coating on this shaft, and you don't want to go too far up, just so that you can, you know, keep the hosel and the glue together as opposed to really close. And so there's where we're going. Alrighty, so a little bit of glue in the shaft, slide the ferrule on it. Why do we slide that? Why do we glue that? So we can remove any particular chance of this thing sliding in the future. So we push it down. There we got her pushed down. Oh, this is going to look good. A little bit of glue. You get it. So it's 360 in the head, 360 in the hosel, 360 on the shaft. Get it spun around. Now we got the back side of the hosel. We got the KBS tour looking down. Hear that different sound? And that's what we're looking for. And then we wipe the ferrule off. This is where the extra work pays off. Get all that extra stuff off of there. So you just got that little extra. And then right here. Alrighty. Now we do that, then we get a piece of tape. And this is the other part about it, is I put this just over top of here and I make it tape it to the hosel and I tape it to the shaft to prevent ferrule creep. So what did we just do? Well, why did I show you some of that club making for just talking about ferrules? Well, assembly is very important to the fit and finish of a ferrule. If the top of the ferrule and the bottom of the hosel, or the top of the hosel and the bottom of the ferrule, however you want to look at it, if they don't match, when you go to finish it, it's going to look even worse. So you need a nice tight fit between the two, and you'll be surprised how many times that's a failure. Now, why is that? When you make glue, it is a chemical reaction. It's called a exothermic reaction. It creates heat. Now, is it like, oh, I'm going to get burnt? No. It just creates a little bit of heat. And when that heat does is that it expands that material and it wants it to push up. That's the reason why you just don't put big globs of this stuff in there and throw it around and then just hope it settles. That's the reason why you put thin amounts, because the thinner this stuff is, the better that it holds. Less likelihood that you're going to have a jacked up ferrule. So that's the reason why we fit and finish for the assembly, and that's the reason why I put tape on there so that the ferrule doesn't slide even if it does push out glue. And that does happen. If it pushes out the glue, it turns out to be this little strip of which I can catch with my knife and flick off and then finish on the belt. That's okay. What I don't want is far away. That way it's a poor look, right? It's a poor look, and it's poor practice. That's really what that is. So what we did is we have it all finished up. We drilled out our ferrules so that it would fit well. You saw I really like the fit of these now that I drilled them out. And now we just got to wait. So when we get ready to finish these, we'll talk about at least 2 different methods in order to finish the ferrules. So give me till tomorrow and we'll finish some ferrules. All right, so the next day, clubs are dry, and we actually have a couple extra ferrules from which to turn that are different concerns, uniquenesses, that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, we have the ones that we're working on. These are the Taylormade P790s with the light blues, you can see. And what we've done is we put some tape around the edge. You can get a little bit closer if you like, but this will do the job. And the idea of the tape is when you are working with a belt, right? In this particular case, a felt belt, which is not a huge concern, but it can happen, is that when you're turning, you just want it to be on here, not on the shaft, because it could remove paint from the shaft. Or in this particular instance, the coating that's on this shaft. Now we have another. I just happened to be working on a Wilson Dynapower hybrid, and we have a different setup here in that it's a graphite shaft. Now it's a graphite shaft, but now what Wilson has kindly done, and I thank them a lot, is right up in here is more of a metal, not painted surface, where it's painted or has a coating up in here. So we're still covering this area so that we don't damage the paint, particularly on graphite. And then we're going to smooth it down, and we're going to get it to here. And now this makes it a little easier because we want the ferrule in this place to be smooth without taking the paint off. And so there's not a lot of paint since it's a coating. We're going good. Next, this just happens to be a Mizuno Hot Metal Pro, the JPX 923 Hot Metal Pro. I'm finishing up a set for a customer, and this is the 4 using some Modus. And this is just a regular old setup. This is as normal as it gets. Steel shaft, ferrule, and going into this. And we're just going to make that nice and smooth, and we're going to shine this thing up. As you notice, I don't have any paint here, or tape. I don't have any tape there because chrome's tough, right? Chrome is tough, and we really don't need to do that too much with this, so that's where we're going with it. Now I have 2 more that are another iron and another wedge that I have taped up, and that's just out of habit, and you're going to see that. Now the other one it's a black wedge, and the black wedge has a PVD coating, and of course I want to be careful of that. Now why is that? Because we don't want to ruin it. All right. The other part is, when using a belt, there's literally 2 machines out there. There's a 1x42 that uses these guys, and then there's a 1x30. Yeah, it's a 1x30, I believe. Anyway, the 1x30 is a smaller one, has a smaller footprint, but it runs at 3,600 RPM, so it goes faster. Because it goes faster, it eats more quicker, and you have to have a very, very, very light touch. That's okay, but it'll eat metal, paint, whatever, if you're not paying attention really fast, and as a beginner, I wouldn't recommend that. I would take the time, spend a little bit of money, get the 1x42s, run them at 1,800, which is half that speed, and use these. Now this is a cotton linen belt. I've went away from these because what I've found is that depending on the idler pulley that's on there, you can curve it and the ends will curve up and try and cut through that paint that we're trying to protect. Don't like that. I keep them as backups in case nothing else is around. Now, what I've gone to are these guys. They're felt belts. And the felt belts are a softer, pretty much non-paint aggressive, but man, they'll tear up a ferrule in no time flat. And so that's what we got. So what you're going to probably see me is changing one out because I'm getting to the end of life on these. So if you look and you see how nice and black and dark that is, you can tell that you're getting to the end of it because if you look at the side, you see some white in there. Well, that white starts showing up, okay? And when you get to the corded part of it, then it starts leaving, marring a pattern in there that you don't want because we want it to be nice and smooth, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to rotate into the shaft, and we're going to eat up some ferrules until they get nice and smooth, and then we're going to go into a shining spot of it. So I'm going to turn you around, we're going to watch it and see how we can do it there. Now, the last bit of this is, Jim, I don't have the time or effort or inclination to go buy a machine. How can I do it at my own home? Good question. What you do need is a vise. You need a vise. So if you had a regular vise and you had one of these, which is just basically a shaft clamp that goes in the vise, you can do it. If you had a speed clamp, which I have right here, I don't know if you can see it, you should be able to see it right there. A speed clamp in a vise, that works just fine. So what you can do is you get what I call emery cloth. Emery cloth comes in with this wide, and it's a very high grit number, meaning it's not, you know, it's better than 100. And if you didn't have it, if you had this and you had 220 and you could cut strips of it, I would say 220 would be just fine. So what you would do is you would sit there, and if we were, I'll just borrow this guy for a moment, and we had it in here, and we just took it and we went over the ferrule and just shoe shined it until we saw that it was smooth. Now, if you're going to use this, method, not only do you want to tape this side, but you're going to want to tape this side as well. And you're going to want to do it even with steel because sandpaper is much more aggressive than any of these things right here. And then you can shoe shine them to fit, and then you can take it, and then the rest of the steps going forward are the same. Those are pretty much the way to do it. Now, I know somebody out there is going to go, well, all I do is I get a paper towel full of acetone and I just start spinning until it goes away. No. It can be done, I will say that, but I don't necessarily think that that's the right way to go. Why? Because acetone's a carcinogen. You don't want to have your hands in, you know, you want to limit the amount of time you're exposed to it. You know, you say, well, I don't ever want to be exposed to it. Well, then don't use it. But, or you can wear a glove. But, you know, limit your time. I've been doing this for well over 20 years. Never had the problematic things that come with that. So you want, always when you're dealing with chemicals, limit your time of exposure. That's what TLV is for. And then that way you're okay. So let's start finishing some ferrules. So as I said earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to lay this in here and we're going to turn into the machine as it turns this way in order to eat it. All right. So I'm going to turn on this, we're going to make some noise, listen to some music, and watch me finish some ferrules. Alrighty, so what you're seeing when you see me and I'm touching up here, I'm trying to ensure that my eyes aren't playing tricks on what I'm feeling, and that I'm feeling that the transition from here to here is smooth. There's no edges. Every once in a while I get what I call a goose egg, and it'll be right about here, and so I have to go back over it, and that's what you're seeing. So let's get back to finishing these guys up. so we got them all finished now as far as shaped. Now that's the fit. Now it's time for the finish. So let's get started on that. All right, so what I do to minimize my exposure to the acetone is I cut them in 2 or 3-inch squares, you know, and I just get it nice and wet, and I fold it over, and it's just a matter of wiping back and forth. Okay, and one of these will be good for at least 6 or 7 depending on the ferrule. And since we have 6 of these clubs, it should work out pretty good. Now, as you see, I'm wiping in 90 degrees to where how I was trying to remove the ferrule, and that is to remove any extra lines, mars, courses, whatever you might want to call it, in order to smooth this guy out. Last one, and I'll go get me another one of these. Alright, so now I got them all nice and smooth. I gotta go get another one. You didn't get to see too much of that one, or too much of what I was doing, because they're light colors and they don't show up a lot. So here's a darker one. Alright, and so you see that's what's coming off, and it actually looks pretty good. Alright, so that's what we're going to see some more of that. You see it on here on this guy. Alright, even more, and it's nice and smooth. Now we're starting this. What it is, the acetone's drying on the paint, and we'll be able to wipe that down here in a little bit. Another one from a Cobra. All done. There it is again. So you can also take, when you're doing this, you can take an inventory of how well you're doing. And when you get these, did you get it all off? Is it sized right? That kind of stuff, and see whether or not you're going to have a good fit and or finish. All right, so that's the last one of those. So we're going to throw these away so we don't have to get into them anymore, including our tape. All right, so the last bit of this is the last bit. A lot of guys will stop at this particular point, and that's okay. You want to let the acetone evaporate off, give the ferrules plastic enough time to, you know, get firm again, and you could be good. However, we're not. We're going to put it on the 8-inch unstitched buffing wheel with some yellow polish. I get the yellow polish from Grizzly, and it is H0813, fine yellow polish. We put some on. All right, the fine yellow polish is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a very fine polishing compound to take the very final mars, this that we're talking about before, off, and give it that last really cool shine, and add a bit of a protectant to it. So let's go do some of that. So what you should have seen is that it was taking off a little bit of it, and it was actually adding a shine. So we actually did see that occurring. And there you go. Alrighty, we've got to cut all these down and put the grips on them. So give me a little bit more, and then we'll talk more about these ferrules, and we'll be done. All right, so the grips are on. Everything's been checked and lined and loft and the whole 9 yards, and they turned out real good. And we did the swing weight on, very consistent across the board. It was what we wanted. It's all good with that one, and I was able to hit them. They were lefty. I got permission. So I did get the chance to hit them. So the P760s aren't exactly a very distance oriented. They're not strong lofted. They're not jacked up. So getting it out to 155, almost 160 with a 7-iron, I was happy as a clam. Happy as a clam with that. So, okay, a quick review. So ferrules come in a lot of different shapes, size, colors, uses, needs. Okay, anywhere from very, very small to very, very tall, big or round, collars, colors, you name it. Centering ferrules, and they just have a purpose now. Used to be purely decorative. Now a lot of them are becoming to where you actually need them. So they also need to look good while they're on the club, so the rest of the clubs look good. Nothing is more distracting than a chunked up, oversized, not finished ferrule sitting in the back. Now, what you saw me do is something because I do this here a lot and for a living. There are other ways. If you don't have this kind of setup at the house, a small vise, right, with the paper that we talked about, but you want to protect your stuff, so you want to make sure that you put the masking tape over the top. We just want to protect our gear. We pay a lot of money for it, so we want to use it we use it for a long time. The other part is to make it shiny. Acetone going in 90 degrees from the way that you go this way with that, and you go this way with the acetone, it's all good. If you want to stop there, it'd be fine. Wipe it down, put a little coat of wax on it, you're good to go. However, if you want to give it that last bit professional touch, then the yellow polish to give it that last bit of shine is where you want to go, and then you put the wax on it, again, as another piece of protectant. So you can get, before I get asked, Billy Bob's, Boning, Golf Works, BB&F, and about any other place that sells club making supplies will have some selection, albeit probably pretty small, for a selection of ferrules. Now, I have seen where Golf Works expanded theirs, so that's pretty cool. BB&F, if you like that custom look, and all the rest of them, the specialty ferrules for OEMs, for older clubs, then I would look at Billy Bob's or Boning. Okay? So that's where it's at. So again, if you got any questions, put them in the show notes below, and I will try and answer them as best I can. Don't forget to join us for the live stream on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, where we do this very same thing that we're going to talk about. And as always, let's see your scores. Go low.